Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Autoheterophiles. Today, I'm here with Njada, who is a detransitioned male, and yeah, I'm glad to have him here because I've seen him in some. You were in the Lost Boys documentary, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's been in some media related to detransition, and it's just always good to hear detransitioner perspectives because I think it's good if people who are transitioning actually like will benefit from it, and so it'd be great. It's great to hear from people that for whom it wasn't necessarily the right path, so that hopefully others can learn from that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks
thanks
for
for
having
being
me.
here.
Of course.
Um, s- what where did you in your life when did you first start experiencing sort of gender issues or desire to be female, and like what were those symptoms?
Um, it definitely seems like it was like a pretty like steady, gradual sort of thing that just emerged as I was developing. I definitely um can say that. I mean, puberty is definitely a time where things like become really explicit. But it was also there were enough like explicit moments like of wanting to be the other sex when I was 5 or 6 years old, which easily could just be said like that's just like kids, exploring and experimenting with their identity, and that's fine. But since that did eventually lead to where it did, like I think there was probably more already going on there. And like I remember when I was 5 years old, I remember specifically for some reason just being really like struck by I'm wondering if I saw like some kind of like Academy Awards or something, and like seeing a woman like a tall thin woman with like a shoulderless dress, and I just remember like that being very like pretty and something being just like lovely about that, and wanting to wear something like that. And um and I remember, like, I've told this story before. I like my brother and I were always just like making up games and stories off the top of our heads. And one time I like went up to him and I was like, "Oh," like as an excuse, I was like, "Oh, I heard about this game that I totally didn't just make up just now, where the rules of the game are one person has to be a boy and the other has to be a girl. And well, you're my older brother, so I'm not gonna make you be the girl. So I guess I'll be the girl." And then I started like going like this with my shirt to like try to make it like that. And then
Yeah.
it was sort of like, what are the rules of the game? And I was like, anyway, I like didn't have any. I didn't think of any rules for the game. Um, and I don't know. I remember, I don't know. I remember, but I remember kind of like feeling like there was like I don't know, something like kind of untouchable about girls. That kind of like I was like um just not at ease around girls. And I mean, all of my friends, like all the things were like super segregated. Just it seemed like it naturally went that way anyway. Like with kids in elementary school, like we just segregated ourselves. It seems like, but I don't know. I remember, I guess, just have maybe being kind of having that kind of like awe strickenness about girls or something.
Right, that
Um,
they're just like almost like they're on a pedestal or just they're so beautiful and great.
Yeah. And even I don't know. I mean, I definitely was like really struck by like how pretty girls were like when I'm like 4 or 5 years old, but it was like also there was also something like kind of like disturbing, almost sort of like just that feeling of like whoa, like they're too I don't know. I remember like seeing like maybe at like a formal set, maybe in church or something, like a girl in like a really frilly dress, and they're just being like something almost like that they're like untouchable, like I don't know. Like boys are just kind of these little like dumb like monkeys that pop around and stuff, and like girls are, I don't know, like too pure for that. I don't want to read too far into that, but there was some kind
Yeah.
of, feeling like that.
It's like an idealization of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, it's hard to say, like, where would that come from? But I think, yeah, by the time like puberty hit, I don't know. I think that those like gender feelings, the wish to be a girl, like it was definitely there at that early age. But I think I pretty, you know, pretty intuitively picked up on just like there's just no way I can entertain that thought. Like that would just be absolutely humiliating, especially to my dad. And my dad was like a very like just very traditionally masculine guy, and I think genuinely so. But also like he was very anxious. He was very anxious about me being like softened up too much. Like we moved to like pretty um, you know kind of rural-ish New England, and I don't know. He was just like worried about like me being like too soft and society like feminizing me and stuff. And he was very anxious about that. That's something I've like realized. So I just knew like anything that could come across as feminine would be like just really really embarrassing, um, which always made me kind of feel like it was a good thing though, like that I was sort of feminine. Like it just felt like that was like even if it was embarrassing, like it was kind of righteous. Um, and um, yeah,
Like
but
righteous in the sense of like rebelling.
um, maybe a little bit. I mean, especially like when I got a bit older and sort of like I was raised like nominally culturally Catholic, but the family didn't take it like that seriously until I was around 12, 13. And then I like very um, clearly decided I don't believe in Christianity. I was exploring like New Age spirituality for a bit before I was just like all religion and spirituality is just kind of wishful thinking and nonsense, and became an atheist. And then just then my dad becomes like really, really serious Catholic. Um, so I forget what I was bringing that up for originally.
Oh, once you started hitting puberty and going through adolescence, like how did your experience with this change?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just to I guess explain why I brought that up. I guess I kind of saw it as being maybe rebellious at that point when I could kind of feel like it was like pushing back against sort of like my upbringing and
Yeah.
sort of our Catholic culture and things like that. Um, but for the most part, I just kind of felt like it was, or just like against like masculine expectations and stuff like that. Like it just, I did feel like it was like actually a good quality. I felt like it was a good quality that I had, but it was just socially embarrassing. Whereas I guess my like, I'm still overall like come across as quite masculine. Like it's just natural. Um, but I just felt like my like masculine side and like the fact that I am quite tall. I'm naturally pretty strong. I'm really like I could be athletic if I wanted to be. I felt like those were good qualities, or no, that those were socially acceptable qualities, but really either they were just kind of insignificant. Like, who cares if you're physically strong? Like, what does that mean? It doesn't tell you anything about like your qualities of your like, you know, your thoughts and your feelings and your artistic sensibilities and things like that. So it was just very, to me it was sort of like already very kind of obvious that like these are qualities that are okay, that are good in of themselves. They're just socially embarrassing. But yeah, once I got into like, I remember it was about ninth or 10th grade that I had a friend who I was in a band with, and we both like talked about like, did you ever think like, you're kind of like a feminine guy? And then we like both revealed that we were bi, and we like started wearing like skinny jeans and like kind of like just adding in a little more like femininity into the way we dressed, and it just felt good. So it was like then that I just started kind of I don't know. Yeah, I guess like thinking it started with like kind of seeing myself as bi, and then realizing like there's something I like about being a feminine guy. And I kind of wavered around a lot between how I saw myself and my like I really liked the word androgynous. Like when I learned that, I just thought like I'm an androgynous person. But then at times I thought, am I really like androgynous, like this mix of masculine and feminine, or do I only say that because I have a like masculine body and I come across as masculine just naturally, but my personality isn't masculine at all. If I had just a female body, wouldn't all of my behavior just very naturally be like feminine, but in a very like average way? Like, so I kind of just saw myself as like, if I was born female, I would have just been a really average girl. You know, I didn't feel like it was like this like intense, like wanting, you know, everything feminine, being like the most girly girl kind of girl. Just, I just felt like the only reason why I think I'm even androgynous at all is because I have a male body. Nothing to do with my personality though. And that I was probably around 16, 17, I was thinking that. And then I had the first thought, like, what if I was born female? And I think that would be the beginning of when it became like dysphoria. And I was just sort of like devastated, kind of like, I remember being like just very depressed. Like it was really like a 50-50 chance. Like if I was born female, just everything about my personality would make sense to everybody else. And I wouldn't have to be like self-conscious about the way I behave.
Yeah. Like it feels like the coin flip landed wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, if I was born female, I'd have a whole different, probably set of DNA and would have, you know, ended up being a different personality.
Right. Yeah, like I've thought about that too. Like if I was born female, it's like, oh, then I'd probably be autoandrophilic and then want to be male. You know, like,
Probably now.
you know. So it's like I would have been bummed out either way, so it's like not worth dwelling on.
That's a good attitude.
Um once you started experiencing dysphoria, was that did that make you start pursuing transition, or like how did that happen?
When I first thought about it, I'd like heard of trans people, but that would have been, so if I'm thinking of like 17, is that kind of moment? That would have been like 2011. And like, yeah, I'd heard of trans people, but I never really met one, or couldn't really think of any that I knew, like even like who I didn't know personally. I basically just accepted, oh yeah, if someone is trans, then of course I'll be accepting. And that's great. But I just always thought like, that just seems like the most like frustrating, like arduous thing you could possibly do. Like trying to just work against like, like just like working against your body like that, and just like putting in so much work to just, and then you would still very, very unlikely that you're gonna actually come across as the other sex to everyone. So at first I just was like, that's, you know, that just sounds like way too much and not worth it. But I guess you know, after a couple of years of going back and forth with that a lot, like it's funny. I like went through like different kind of phases where, I mean, I was dressing in like this kind of you know, kind of androgynous way, and then at one point like thinking that trying to look attractive is just all like vanity, and I should just completely get rid of that from my life totally. So I just like started dressing in this very default kind of just guyish, like not much effort, just short hair. Don't really worry about shaving that much. That, you know, that all don't need to shave like all the time. Um, and but then the desire to dress more feminine came back within like another year or so, once I was in college. And I was in my second year of college that I was just I was really like depressed like a lot. I always like struggled with motivation, but I was just like finding college difficult and not finding motivation or really like knowing what I wanted to do with my life. So just finding myself depressed a lot, and then having a lot of social anxiety. And it was clear that somehow or another, my wish to be female was connected to that. And I went to a therapist at my college, and you got like 2 free sessions before they would refer you somewhere outside. So they just like help you find someone. And I just like, so I said to the therapist, like, or he just said like, list things that you want to talk about. And so I just mentioned the really basic stuff, depression, anxiety, social anxiety. And then I kind of mentioned toward the end, I've said this like a bunch of times, but like I said toward the end, that I like often wish that I had been, that I was female, that I was a girl. And sometimes I feel like I am a girl. And I was kind of like, I feel it very strongly, but I don't really like know that I understand it. So I don't like, part of me thinks like it is hard to imagine being like, yeah, I like being a guy and feeling like I connect with that. But like, I would like, I'd like to consider that maybe that would be possible, that I could connect with, that I could actually like feel like okay with being a guy. So like maybe I'm trans, but I'm just not really sure. I really want to like approach that slowly. It was weird that like I really did, like I emphasized to the therapist, like I want to take that slowly because I could see there's just a lot of different kind of angles to this. Um, and he basically picked up on that, and he like said like, okay, like thanks for sharing all of that. And then like the first thing he said was, I know that you wanted to approach that slowly, and I can totally understand why. Like he was like, I understand why, but I think that that's something you really are going to want to tackle head on, because like people who have those feelings, like it doesn't go away. And this was now 2013, and he said, and what therapists are finding these days is that like the typical treatment for people who feel that way like consistently is to transition. Um, and lots of people have done that, and that's what makes them feel like they can just feel satisfied with their life and just move on with their life. And that kind of just like took away the what I thought was like healthy skepticism, and kind of my expectation almost that if I just came right out with it and was like, I feel this way and therefore I'm trans and I want to transition, like I expected I would get like a nice like pat on the head and be like, whoa, like let's slow down here.
Yeah.
Maybe you are trans, but this is like really serious. You gotta be really careful, as we approach that, and we'll go through that really carefully. So I thought I was like maybe even overcompensating. Am I being too cautious here? But then when he said that, and then I looked into it, I started just looking into it a little bit, just on a surface level, and being like, oh wow, yeah, there are all these people transitioning, and they're being approved by a therapist and an endocrinologist to get hormones, and look at all these people and all of these like examples of probably like the best examples of someone who transitioned at like 18 or 19, and now they look like a beautiful girl. And I guess I like, part of me was like really hoping that somebody was gonna, it's that thing, like if somebody tells you like, no, you don't need to be so skeptical, then I was kind of like, whoa, like I just really wanted it to work. So
did you get referred to a gender therapist at that point?
Yeah. I mean, basically, he basically just said, I suggest that you look up a therapist who specializes in gender dysphoria or gender issues. And so I just found there were just a couple in the town where I was going to college, and coincidentally I found this guy, this therapist who coincidentally I had actually gone to a couple of times before when I was like much younger for ADHD, and it was like completely unrelated. And then I was like, oh yeah, I had really good conversations with him. So like he just like kind of let me just like air my thoughts, and so I was just like, yeah, I liked him. And he listed like gender, I forget exactly what LGBTQ or whatever on his on his list of things. So yeah, I went to him, and he never really like, challenged me on it, but he did say like, we should talk about this and go over time, and why don't you begin by socially transitioning? Like, if you feel like this is something you want to do, then like you should take this time to be like, all right, you're like, tell the people who you think you really need to tell, your family. That my dad lives a ways away, so my parents had recently divorced, and so I told my mom and my brother, but not my dad, that I was socially transitioning, and that I go by she, her pronouns, and I identify as woman and all that. And so pretty much everybody in my life around me was like happy to go with that, and congratulated me on that and all. And I was starting wearing women's clothes, and the idea was just to do that for like 6 months, see how I feel, and then if I'm still feeling good about it, then I would be approved to, or be given a letter of like recommendation to an endocrinologist, which is what happened.
Wow, that's actually a pretty slow compared to the modern standards that they made you wait
Yeah,
6 months.
for sure. Yeah. As much as I think like there should have been a lot more healthy skepticism there. Yeah, I've definitely heard lots of stories of like people being approved for hormones on like a single visit or a couple of visits, and so yeah, I mean, I just always try to tell the story like it happened.
Yeah. Um, how in those 6 months of, like, just being socially transitioned but not having done hormones yet, um, how was your experience with that? Like, was it difficult?
Um, no, I definitely really enjoyed it. I, uh, I think I had like the initial like euphoria and hopefulness, like um, feels it felt great, really. I mean, I liked wearing women's clothes, and I think it was pretty like I think I was trying to be pretty careful not to try to pull off something that really wouldn't suit me. Like, there's a lot of times clothes that it's like, yeah, it would be cool if I could fit into that, but like that's not gonna work. So I was like, trying to be tasteful with it, and it just felt really good and refreshing to like um, be wearing women's clothes, just like as far as like pants and shirts and sweaters and stuff like that, and just like the way that it's like just kind of like a little bit tighter, just the way it like hugs you a little more, just kind of feels
Yeah,
good.
and it's softer.
Yeah, and then the way that people treated me, um, the way people just, and sometimes that just mysterious quality that you can never really quite explain. Just people do treat women differently, and men differently, and I just liked that. I just always appreciated that. I mean, I was definitely treated with like a little more like gentleness, and there just being like sometimes like kind of group ways of like um I don't know, having a somewhat protective attitude toward the women, a little bit more deferential. I don't know. Doesn't have to be anything like super um, exaggerated. It's just kind of like it's just kind of there, and just feeling like more like I was a part of the girls, and it just felt more right. Even though I would kind of come into conflict with that, like when I would get into like really like deeper like one-on-one friendships with girls, and they would be fully like willing to go along with the whole me being a girl thing, but it would eventually start to, I think it was mostly in the like one-on-one friendships that I would start to like feel like, yeah, we're definitely not the same. um, like I'm definitely still a guy to this person.
You mean just the difference in, like, how you, like, think and react?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I know what you're talking about. There's like a it's like a chasm that's kinda impossible to cross in terms of, like, how women behave.
Yeah, for sure. um, I came in touch with
Um,
that, I felt like really sharply. I've brought up before, like when I dropped acid with my friend who was a woman, and it's not like that was the only situation I felt that, but it was like that then when it was just like everything like kind of just very focused on. I just was like focused and like observing like what is going on here. Oh yeah, this is the way we talk to each other. Like
Yeah.
just like picking up on the like little underlying kind of mechanics behind things and being like, yeah, definitely like Eve, Adam. I told you it's like I felt like we were like Adam and Eve. There was this like whole like thing there, and just this like feeling like she is woman, I am man, sort of
Yeah.
just
The
being
I've
like brought down to that like black and white kind of.
the it, it doesn't surprise me that you said like that happened while on acid. Like that I've had that experience on acid plenty of times where all of a sudden you see reality really clearly and it's not like a hallucination, but like you're actually just seeing something that like your normal mind would kind of filter out or not notice, but you
Right.
like really pick up on the subtext deeply on it.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
yeah, it's
Yeah, which is, I mean, it was that particular time on LSD that I like had this moment too that I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, all right, like it, I was just throughout that whole night I was having all these conflicts like, am I, like it doesn't really exactly make sense to say I'm a woman, but like I didn't believe that like a woman was this metaphysical idea. Like I never thought anything like that. I just thought, for all intents and purposes, like I might as well be a woman. Like socially, that makes more sense for people to consider me a woman, even if we can all acknowledge that I'm male. Like I didn't have any trouble with that kind of thing. Um, but I was just in this conflict of like, um, am I, this way because of like some sort of trauma, like really early on that I can't remember, or is it just the way that I'm born that it's like just for all intents and purposes, I'm always going to feel this way, so I may as well go along with the transition like all the way through, or or did I like jump the gun? Like, do I like because I'm like having these experiences where I'm like, there's still something fundamentally like male about me that has a lot to do with my personality too, and the way I think. Like, it's not just being an adult human male. Like I've never been satisfied with that kind of understanding, even if that's an important like basis. Like yeah, we want to acknowledge sex, of course, but um, you know, I thought, when I was having those experiences, I was like, do I wanna like actually go through this if there is something really fundamentally like male about my personality too, that is going to keep coming up, like do it like am I going to have to just be always ignoring like that subtext like my whole
yeah.
life? So I had this like moment of honesty where I just like was like, okay, like I better be like, prepared for the worst or whatever. Like, like I'm gonna like I decided, okay, I'm gonna look at myself and just like see like what if I saw myself as a guy. And I kind of just like looked at myself and like I think there is a way of kind of like you can look at yourself and filter out sort of the things that you don't want to see, kind of like you're looking at yourself in the best light, like because you're trying to see yourself as a woman in a way. And I like looked at myself and just was like, but yeah, like, all these like features in my hair and clothes and all of that, but like also male, like male skull, jaws, all of that. And I was just like kind of realized like for the most part I look like a long haired guy, like rock star or surfer guy or something like that. And I was just like, well, it's not a bad look. And um, I guess I just I felt like I like felt happy for a moment, like I am a guy, um, and it's not like I didn't go back to feeling the same old way, but I guess it was like I brought in like that um, there is a lot about me that I've always like if I really actually love uh, all of these things about myself, um, these like feminine things. Um, I guess like why I don't know, why don't I love the things about me that happen to me to be masculine too? Um, and so I guess I that kind of just like started a new trajectory. It was sort of like an epiphany moment, I guess you could say. It didn't totally change everything right away, but it like just kind of set a new trajectory for me where I was like, okay, I've definitely been like hating on a lot of parts of myself too, like the masculine parts of me. And you know, I try not to force it. I mean, there've been times that I definitely have where I was like trying on even in like the Lost Boys documentary, like I was dressed in a much more masculine, just kind of traditionally masculine way. Um, you know, which I partly dressed that way because I was like, it's just comfortable to like not have to think that much about how you look. So like, and I was like, I think I look pretty good when when I am in a like a traditionally masculine kind of look. Like I could, if I wanted, I could be this like handsome guy, um, in a way that like maybe women would find more attractive. Um, but it's still definitely not like what I like the most. Like I think I'm probably always going to gravitate to something more like the way I like to dress today. And yeah, I don't know whether I'll like ever totally like reconcile it all and integrate everything. But I'm definitely way more comfortable with my masculine side and just like my masculine features. Um, I don't feel like I have to like dissociate from them, but I'm definitely still uncomfortable with certain things. I wish my shoulders weren't broad. I wish I had a higher pitched voice, my jaws, stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
wish all these things, but you know, I like how I look overall. Like I kind of like, in some ways, I actually like being a feminine guy.
Yeah, like there's always
If
going
that
to be
even is the right
a wish for
word for it,
more.
feminine guy. But,
With the Lost Boys documentary, um, how did how did you get like picked for that? Were you like a Twitter poster at the time or something?
yeah, I mean, I haven't been like that deeply involved in. I've only done a few podcast interviews, and at that time, I think I'd only done like 2 or 3 podcast interviews. But I would just like post around on Twitter from time to time. I wasn't super active. I could never get into like big Twitter debates and things like that, or I could never follow everybody who's talking about this, even though I was very interested. I just can't follow it all. Um, yeah, I don't totally know exactly why I was picked. I don't know if they just liked my thoughts, and then the combination of kind of maybe the aspects of my story that made it compelling because I was like um, uh, I had a very like deep and like long lasting feeling about being trans, that it didn't just like go away even when I was like, I'm not trans. Like I still dealt with it for quite a long time. It was like clearly I feel the way that like something like what trans people feel. Like it wasn't just like a whoops, like found out I wasn't trans sort of thing. Um, but also I wasn't left with any permanent effects. And I kind of, um, uh, well, yeah, that I kind of come at it with a perspective of like that I'm very like grateful. Like I'm well aware of what could have happened if I just didn't happen to figure it out quickly enough. Because nobody was discouraging me in my transition. Um, not even
Yeah,
my
there's like
dad,
no pushback
surprisingly.
at all.
Surprisingly not. I mean, the closest thing to that would be that my dad was like very upset when he found out that I had already been on hormones for like a few months when I told him, and that my mom and my brother already knew, and everybody around me knew. Um, and I think it was just so, I don't know, difficult for him to deal with, that he kind of convinced himself that like maybe this is what is best for my son, daughter. I don't know. That he just kind of, he was obviously like anxious about it because he kept asking me like, so how's your process going? I guess, is it gonna like what how long do you think it's gonna take for you to like, are the hormones actually gonna make you look like a woman? And I'd be like, yeah, I mean, you never know. He would like ask me that so much. Um, but he didn't challenge it. He I know like my mom was really serious about like everyone like affirming my identity and using the pronouns and stuff. And she had the bigger family, so she like kind of told them all like about that, and then was very like insistent to my dad, like you better use the pronouns, like because like 42% of trans people have attempted suicide or something, or whatever exactly that statistic is.
The 41% number,
41%
yeah.
number, yeah, and yeah. I mean, she like used that kind of stuff and gave him a bunch of pamphlets, which he said like he was like, I took that like stack of pamphlets and I said I'm not reading any of this. That's what he told me later, but yeah. So I mean, they were just I don't know. They were like they're just so opposite in that way. But I don't know. I think it was just like maybe so upsetting or like embarrassing to my dad that he just like convinced himself like maybe my child is like one of those really rare people. And so oddly enough, we like kind of became a little more like close to each other because I think we just had to like be a little more honest with each other after that.
Yeah. Do you think
Sorry, I'm
anyone
being a
else in
little
your
rambly.
family has like like autogynephilia or autoandrophilia?
Not really. I mean, my brother is definitely feels quite like gender nonconforming, and is I think pretty um, similar to me in a lot of ways. I mean, we just have really similar personalities. But I don't have any particular reason to think that he would be like AGP or something. Um, but yeah, I definitely don't want to speculate
Right, yeah.
on podcast.
Yeah. I like to ask because I've seen so many anecdotes of you know, either like say like an MTF coming out and then like their dad being like, "You're supposed to repress those feelings." Like I've had those too, but like
Mhm.
or like things like that where it like runs in the family.
Oddly enough, like that same day that I like dropped acid, it was like that one. I on that same day I was like writing down a lot of stuff, and I like wrote down once I was like, my father and my grandfather and many grandfathers before me have asked the question, why does it feel so good to be a woman? And I like wrote these like swishy lines around it or something, and I know it was like cringy, but my point was like it was just one of these like raw like feelings that I was like I don't have any reason whatsoever to think that my dad and grandfather were like repressing super hard like that sort of thing. But I was like struck with this like feeling I was like, wait a second, like that's like what it is. It's just like it's been passed down for
Right.
generations.
It's like it's a rite of passage that every man has to deal with these feelings and work through them.
Maybe so.
Yeah. Um I guess this isn't the question. I just want to comment on like the Lost Boys documentary. That like something I found strange when watching it is that I think they only like briefly mentioned autogynephilia for maybe like 20 seconds or so,
Yeah.
but every single detransitioner in that, as far as I can tell, is of autogynephilic etiology. And so
Mm.
it seemed really strange to me that they sort of skirted the central thing that's causing males to
Yeah.
transition.
Well, admittedly, like I was saying before, I mean, I guess it makes sense to me why they wouldn't have gotten into it. I mean, I think even if AGP is central to all of this, the I think a lot of what the maybe these other issues that the Lost Boys documentary talks about, that even if they're peripheral, like I think they're very important. Um, I don't think it made the things that they did talk about like kind of distractions, but it seems like I mean it's just, yeah, it is just a really difficult thing to talk about, um, and it's taken me a while to like come around to being more comfortable with the term AGP, because yeah, like yeah, like I said, I mean, when I like first heard about the term, I was kind of like, when I first heard what AGP was, and I heard people kind of describe it about themselves, I was like, okay, that definitely is something of like what I experience, but I don't really know that that's like, I don't know if that's like central to it, um, because usually descriptions of AGP always seem to be like peripheral things, or like talking about it as a fetish. I just don't think that I have a fetish. Like I think that um, I think that if you have AGP, maybe you're more likely to um, develop a fetishistic attitude toward, uh, well, certainly toward your particular kind of experience. You're more likely to have those particular kinds of fetishes. Maybe you're just more likely to have a fetish in general. I don't know. But it just kind of seemed like it just seemed like such a confounding idea. Like every time, I mean, every time still like online when people talk about it, like it's just like there's just this explosion of like, oh, but AGP is this, oh, but AGP is that, oh, they're like attracted to themselves, oh, it's like at root it's narcissism, and all this. And it just makes you kind of wonder, like if I say, oh yeah, I have AGP, if the other person thinks that I'm saying something completely different from what I'm saying, then like why am I saying it? Why am I like the words I'm saying something different to that person than what I'm what I think I'm saying? Like communication isn't happening. Nothing is being communicated. So I would for a long for I mean I still kind of feel that way, but it is also clear that like AGP is is the term, is the idea that is like actually facilitating good conversation about this. Um, so I mean, I guess I feel like even at the time that like when the Lost Boys documentary came out, I was sort of like, oh yeah, like yeah, I could say to a few people that I have AGP, but I just like I don't go around saying that. So I was even still like kind of coming around to being more comfortable with like making it an explicit topic. That
Yeah.
I just I just feel like if the Lost Boys documentary talked about AGP, like would it have even brought any clarity to anything?
That's a good point because my perspective is like since it's coming from like the gender critical sort of ideology, like I don't think they would have really portrayed it really sympathetically so that viewers would have either been able to recognize that it was within them or they're someone they knew who was transitioning.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's often described as like narcissism or just like as a fetish when I think most of the people that have this, if they were to hear it described that way, they wouldn't really relate to it.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. I mean that has to matter if we're gonna talk about it. Like it has to matter to us that not just that we're like satisfied. Like yes, I know, and like I'm going to stick with like saying the truth, but like are people going to know what we're talking about? Are they going to be able to even receive uh, what we're talking about? And I don't know. I mean, I've been following like people like you and Aaron and Ray more closely like over time as I say like as I've gotten more just I guess matter of fact and comfortable with the idea of AGP. Um, and I guess the more, at least, I don't know if it's just because I've been paying closer attention or if it's like recent interviews, but like in recent interviews, like that I heard, like with you and Aaron and Tali, is that how you say it? Yeah, Tali.
Yeah.
Like, and then other interviews that they've been doing like around this time, like that they are like kind of dispelling a lot of the misconceptions around AGP that are making me go like, okay, that makes me a lot more comfortable. Just like knowing that like maybe I am more on the same page with you guys than I kind of worried. Like I like for a while, like I was like hearing this stuff and I was going like, it sounds like you guys are still saying like AGP is a fetish and that like people are people who are AGP and they transition, like they're like, let's just be frank about it, guys. Like we do it, we do that because we have a fetish and we're trying to satisfy it. And you just have to realize like that's dangerous. So don't take it too seriously. Like you can enjoy your fetish over here, sort of, but like, you know, realize like reality over here or something. And I was just going like, yeah, it doesn't feel like we're like thinking of the same thing. But now like more recently, I think it might just be because I'm paying closer attention that I'm like more comfortable, I guess, here, like with the knowing that you guys see it with the at least similar nuance that it seems to me.
Yeah, because it's uh, I have noticed that a lot of people will use the term fetish to talk about it, and when they do that, they really kind of miss the point of like kind of how it feels. And I I think since it's basically just heterosexuality pointed inward, it kind of feels ridiculous to me to call it a fetish because it's like, is heterosexuality a fetish? Like, no. And so if it's like pointed in a different direction, does it magically become a fetish at that point? And I just don't think it's a good descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
yeah,
I
I really
think
liked Aaron and Tally's show. They're doing a really good job at sort of being clear about clarifying about like what it is, what it's not, sort of how it's experienced, and all those things.
mhm. Yeah, I was finding the kind of concepts of autosexuality and allosexuality. Like I found like I just found those terms really useful. Just kind of understanding like um, it seems like they're kind of two sides of sexuality. I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about that, and I don't know if that's um, I don't know.
I do think that is a dimension of sexuality, the location, whether it's self versus other. I think that's like one of the dimensions of sexuality.
Yeah, because it seems like people have always people always like the feeling of being desired, and of course, like um, having sex with someone or being sexual with someone like always involves like their body and your own body, them and you. Um, and I don't know. It kind of seems to me like, I mean, because I find that I'm like both very allo attracted and auto attracted. It's not really one or the other to me. I mean, it can kind of, and yeah, I do see the two as very kind of distinct. Like they are always both there, but I guess the way that I find myself so sort of allo and auto attracted is sort of like why I can very like easily like have a relationship with a guy or a girl. Um, but I don't know, it seems maybe just because I've never known anything differently. It just seems like your own appreciation of your own body um, is just a big part of sexuality. It doesn't negate how you feel about the other person. It doesn't like take away from your focus on the other person. Um,
Yeah, I guess it depends on the degree of it, because like sometimes if the auto side is super strong, it does interfere with that connection. It sounds like
yeah.
you have a pretty balanced amount of either, though.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess I feel like it just doesn't necessarily negate. Like it doesn't by its like very nature negate um, from the other person, and it seems like someone who is maybe more um, like much more exclusively auto attracted isn't therefore like unable to be relating to the other person. It's just kind of like the well, I don't know necessarily what that's like, but it struck me when I've heard people talk about like feeling like they're not connecting with their partner. Like I don't know, it struck me like that it was a little bit more like they were just worried about it. They were like kind of feeling like maybe guilty about it, but that it didn't mean that they didn't care about their partner.
Right. Yeah.
Um, just as I sometimes think of like, I don't know, it seems like a lot of men don't particularly care at all about how they look, but they'll be like really attracted to a woman. And like sometimes I'm thinking of this if it's like the extreme in the other direction. Like think of like, I don't know, a guy who's like just a guy who like actually is kind of creepy and like goes around and like hits on women and is just like really kind of creepy about it, but isn't like self-conscious about it. Like that strikes me as somebody who is very allo attracted, but like has like no sense of like, doesn't even take like enjoyment in sort of being desired.
Right. It's
Like
all
it
about
doesn't,
like what she looks like,
yeah.
basically.
Like if she finds me gross, almost like it doesn't matter. It's just like,
Right. Yeah.
if you're too extreme in that way, like you could just kind of like not even care about like how you present yourself, in which case you might be more likely to be creepy about things because you're not really you're not concerned about whether like you're delightful to the other person, you're delighting the other person, which was why I was kind of thinking like there could be something actually very positively good about auto attraction, like because it's not just that you're enjoying sort of your own body. And yeah, it could be vain to be like taking pleasure in people, being attracted to you, but like you can also like for that reason, that for in the same token, just as you could be like vain about it, you could enjoy like people envying you, which is where like, you're actually like enjoying people being pained by, either not getting to have you or by being jealous of you or something like that. Like that's the bad side, I would say, to like auto attraction. Um, but the good side could be that you actually care about the fact that you can make your partner happy.
Right. Or it could motivate you to like take care of yourself,
Yeah.
like physically.
Mhm.
Um, when when you'd mentioned how when you were transitioned, you had sort of like that sort of acid trip day where you started like reconciling, like accepting that you had maleness as part of you, and that sort of like precipitated the detransition process. Like, how long was it from that to when you started going through social or medical detransition, and like how did you do that process?
Um, I don't remember if it was exactly like from that day on. I never took my hormones again. It might be, but it was like very, very shortly after. It might have been like I'm like not sure, and I thought about it for a few days afterward because it was like that was like
LSD
a
is
big.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot that you have to process afterward because it's like you can have so much happen, and then for weeks and weeks you'll be like, oh yeah, there was that other thing I was thinking about, and it's like a whole episode that's crystal clear in your memory, and then you can like review it, and because just too much happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very like maybe I needed a little time to like think about it. But I said to two of my friends, I said to that girl, and then I said it was like because like you can't sleep when you take LSD. Like the next morning, I told my other friend, I was like, I just realized I'm a guy, and I remember I don't know, they just kind of were like, okay, well, because they knew that I was like coming down from LSD and stuff, and I think they just I don't know wanted to not interfere too much, and they were like. Um, but I like so I said that like I felt this like strong conviction, and then I had to again you know I I thought a lot about these things, so it's not like I just suddenly everything was resolved, but now it was like I need to think about this more, and I basically realized that I'm just obviously not sure enough to be on hormones. Um, so so yeah, it was either right away or like a few days after that I stopped taking hormones, and I thought maybe I'll go back on it, but I need to take a break and see, really make sure that I know before I go back on it, and I just never did. I never told my endocrinologist or anything. I just and they never, oddly enough, they never reached out to me or anything about it. Um,
Yeah, that is odd.
yeah, it's surprising.
And did you start? How long was it before you started like socially detransitioning after you stopped the hormones?
I guess that was a little more gradual because the other big part of the story, if you've heard anyone's heard me like talk about this on other podcasts, like it was that day I like also had this feeling of like where have I been going in life, and like I mean LSD kind of like can create this feeling too of like I am like too porous, like I'm too like susceptible to influence. Oh, I just got to plug my computer in. And I had this sudden thought, I need to go to confession. Um, and it did just happen to be that they were having confession at that time, which they only do like on Saturday evenings, and I think like early morning during the week. And I went to the nearest Catholic church. I went to confession, and I felt like very like cleansed of like just things that were weighing on my conscience. And you know, that might be a story for another day, but basically like I felt like a very like I need to go to confession. And that has so much background to it because of course I was raised Catholic, didn't take it seriously. My dad became super kind of conservative Catholic. I argued with him as an atheist. Then I started kind of exploring religions again, but more like kind of Eastern religions, while I was like taking LSD and stuff like that. And then kind of, I think like my exposure to Eastern religions, and then eventually like Hinduism, where like worship is more a part of their tradition. I started feeling more drawn to that. I think that did kind of give me like a kind of a fresh look at Christianity again, where I could kind of look at it without being like kind of like a angsty young person who is kind of resentful of my religious upbringing and stuff like that. So I was like very like impressed with sort of the like an image of the cross, and then I went to mass afterward. And so after that, I didn't immediately like see myself as a Catholic, but I did start going to mass every Sunday from then, and being like, also I think I might believe in this. And over time I became, I guess technically I was already Catholic, but like actually felt like I was Catholic. And so I went through, a thing where I was like, I want to understand Catholicism in the most traditional way possible, or in the most like authentic way possible. So I did go in a bit of a traditionalist route for a time, where I was like, well, these guys, like, they're the traditionalists. They'll tell me what is the most authentic way to understand Christianity. So I could never totally square all of that stuff, but I was trying to take everything as seriously as possible. So I did end up like feeling like I really shouldn't be even trying to be like a kind of feminine guy or androgynous guy. Like I should be like fully embracing like being a guy, even if I have the sort of personality like everybody's always known for all of history. A lot of priests, monks, artists, poets, things like that. There have always been very sensitive men. I don't have to be a manly man in every sense, but dressing in an androgynous way or wearing women's clothes, like that's still not that's more indulging. So I totally, I dressed in a very just kind of standard like masculine way for a while, and in some ways I think I don't regret doing that. Part of it also was that actually I didn't immediately stop wearing all women's clothes. I just kind of like toned it down a bit because I was like, okay, gonna kind of re-enter into socially being known as a guy, and regarded as a guy. And I was still having like lots of thoughts. Well, okay, I don't think transitioning is a good idea, but still, like, when am I? Like, am I a guy? Do I have some sort of like non-binary something, or am I like this or that? Am I, what is it? And I just kind of felt like all of these thoughts are going to go nowhere. Sort of, just like trying to understand gender is just kind of just revving my wheels, like thoughts that are just not going to go anywhere. And I'm actually kind of glad that I took a break from even really thinking about it. There is something actually very like comfortable about it, like after detransitioning, to cut your hair, let your beard grow out, like wear kind of boring clothes, even though it's like boring and eventually, not very comfortable or satisfying to me. But there is something at the same time kind of comfortable about that, because it's like, you don't have to shape yourself. You don't have to put all this work into, especially after transitioning. Like that's a lot of work to like force your body into a position. And so I was just very comfortable to kind of just, be a guy. And yeah, that was kind
Yeah,
of
like,
how
it
I
makes it
started.
so you don't have to be, like, thinking about, like, "How do I look?" and everything, you can just, like, be, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I would say it was, maybe over a period of like, mm, I don't know, yeah, it might have been like 5 months, 5, 6 months or so before I like wasn't wearing any women's clothes anymore.
You, like, tapered off of it, basically.
Yeah.
And did you after you stopped wearing women's clothes, did you find that after maybe, like, 6 months or a year or so, like, the desire to wear them returned?
No, actually, um, I think it actually took several years really before um, I was at least conscious um, of wanting to wear women's clothes again. Like I can't really think of any, because I usually, even if like, I don't know, it is funny because like I wasn't particularly happy a lot of the time when I was like, I felt very directionless, like because I left school, I like started believing in a new religion. I felt very connected to it. I felt drawn to it. It made me feel like I think uh, I don't know, like you can uh, try to, I guess, psychoanalyze religious experience. In my opinion, I think at a certain point you can't uh, reduce it to that, but I think religion does kind of give, and my belief in God kind of gives like a sense of what I think someone calls basic trust, like psychological basic trust that life is good, that your life is good, that like no matter how bad things are, um, your life is worth it, or that you're loved by God, that you're good. Um, and sorry, what was your question?
I was just curious about, often when people detransition, they say, like, if an AGP detransitions, they'll, like, stop doing all the women's clothes and everything, and then they'll be fine for a little bit, but then, like,
Oh,
the desire often
oh, right.
returns.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, I think when I stopped wearing women's clothes, I think I guess you could say I definitely repressed uh, those feelings for a long time, but it wasn't like I was. I would think that even as I was like repressing, I would have had some distinct moments where I'm like battling with like wanting to wear women's clothes or something like that. I didn't really. I often wished that I was female. I think that was the thing. Like I still wished that I was female, but I think I was just struck with like the feeling of like, if I'm not female, what's the point in wearing women's clothes? Like what is that going to do for me? I think I really just was very I didn't like my male body. I didn't like men's clothes like at all, but I just kind of kept with the whole like, this is the best I got. Like this is the most comfortable I'm gonna be, is to just not worry about the way that I look. Um, I don't know if I pushed that. I don't know if I forced myself into that for too long. I think I did force myself into that for too long, but a bit too long. But I don't think that like um, I seem to be pretty I wasn't content because I wasn't happy with life, but I think I sincerely felt like that was the best option I had. Because I guess I felt like if I put on women's clothes, it's just going to make me feel bad
Right.
because
It'll
I'm
just,
going
like,
to never,
remind you of, like, being female and, like, how you can't have that.
yeah. And because I think my like gender dysphoria was really like, it was that bad that like until I it took a good few years later before like I had this like whole new like phase of like devastating gender dysphoria. So like I have to assume like it was there in there somewhere already. Um, but you know, to just like fast forward a bit, like I left college. I started discerning a religious vocation. I wanted to become a monk, and I eventually was in a monastery for 6 months, and it took a few years. I was taking care of my grandmother. I was doing some work, and it took a while before I like found a community that I liked. I went there. I liked the idea of committing my life to like a monastic life, but ended up practically didn't really work out. I was not happy. I just ended up being just too unhappy and needed to leave. And so I mean, it was my choice. I mean, they gave me as the best sort of guidance as they could give, and they ended up like helping me find a therapist toward the end of it. And then I like went back to school because I didn't finish my bachelor's. So I went back to school to finish my bachelor's, and I was just like, well, if that's not sort of my like direction in life, then like what is? Like I just I think it was because like I at least had this like hope that I was gonna find something that would be just like a life path that would like things would be like, not that everything would be easy, but just like that I would know what I'm supposed to do in life, and I would just keep doing that, and things would be um yeah, I think you know, that I would know what I'm doing in life in some basic way. And now I don't know what I'm doing in life. So I go back to school. I start thinking about for the first time whether I think I'd want to get married, because I undeniably was always like crazy about girls, and found that the desire to have a girlfriend, desiring women to be just like really, really troubling. I just like I hated the feeling, even though I found them so attractive. I hated that feeling, and was very uncomfortable with being the guy and all of that. So when I left the monastery, go back to school, I start thinking about maybe dating. I meet some women who I like. There was one girl who I was like crushing on, and I was you know, getting to know her over time. And then I asked her out, and she said no, but she was really nice about it. And then, you know, I was just kind of like, I don't really know, like, I just didn't really know what to like to do with like being attracted to women, but like still kind of feeling like I want to, you know, I want to be a traditional male. Like maybe this is like how I will find, like how I'll find satisfaction is like once I like really truly like just take it up, like just fully embrace being male. And I am attracted to women, and women are attracted to like usually more traditionally masculine kind of guys, and I can look that way. So like it does feel good. Like I did kind of feel good when I could notice that when I was when I had short hair and like kind of a light beard and all of that, like I could be attractive to women. And wasn't very good at had no idea how to like flirt with women, because it's just weird to me, like trying to flirt as a like a guy like as a masculine guy with a typical straight woman. It just doesn't come naturally to me. But I could see that on occasion that like, oh, this girl like finds me attractive, and that was a good feeling. It was a good feeling, but it's still, because it doesn't really like gel with my whole personality. I feel like I just feel better. I don't want to fast forward too much, but like it would take some years later to realize, like, I mean, I just feel more myself when I'm like flirting with a guy who's like a more masculine guy, who I'm not. I don't find him like physically, like I wouldn't walk down the street and be like, damn. Sort of, not that I do that with women, but I mean, you know, I wouldn't even be tempted to like keep looking, you know. But the way that he like interacts with me or something like that like makes me like feel really like comfortable with him, and then I can like be flirtatious, and it comes like so naturally to me. I don't know why. It's not like I like had practice, it just does. So it's like, okay, apparently there's something like really natural about this to me. So it took a while to kind of like, be like, I think I needed to give it a real try. Like, I'm going to try to be a straight guy. Because in a sense I am. So like, why wouldn't I? But it just didn't really work. And like trying to be this like straight guy, and knowing that I'm like attractive and all, still just made me like super dysphoric. So that was when like going back to college and really actually considering trying to date women for the first time since high school, where I'm like now 25, 26. That brought on this like whole new wave of dysphoria, like just feeling disgusting, like just disgusting about being a guy, and that like disrupting like just how I felt in every social interaction. So
How did
I
you deal
obviously
with
didn't.
dysphoria that time?
Yeah, so that definitely like took time. But I think like just having a good group of friends was really important. Like just having like being connected socially, just having social connections is important to just feeling like you're okay as a person. Like people to give you like feedback, like not even necessarily asking them directly, like, am I a disgusting man? But just like seeing that on their face that they obviously don't think that you're a disgusting man when you're just being a normal man. Um, uh, like all the things that like, I would be tempted to like look away from, like, I might be tempted to like just avoid all social interactions of a certain kind. Like if I find a woman attractive, like I'm going to like feel gross around her or something like that. Well, don't avoid talking to attractive women, even if you're not gonna try to flirt with her. Just like try to just not like just try to be normal, and uh that I think there'd just be like this temptation to just like flee those situations, because like if you don't look, like if you think that your behavior is bizarre, it can be easy to like the moment that you think that you're starting to behave kind of bizarrely, like you look away from people's faces, or you leave, or maybe you stay around, but yeah, you just don't look anyone in the eye, because you don't want to see someone like looking horrified or disgusted or confused or uncomfortable. But if you just choose to not do that, to resist that, that impulse, like you finally get an opportunity to like look someone in the eye and be like, that person was unfazed. Because why? Because I'm acting normally. Like I just don't cause people to think that like, people don't think that I'm bizarre. People don't think that I come across as bizarre, but I just for some reason assume that I do. So I just never, I always look away and never get the opportunity to even find out how normal I am. Even if, yeah, obviously there's things about me that aren't particularly normal, but like not in that way. Like,
Right. It's
I
like
had to
you're
just do
having
a
a
lot
lot of
more of that kind
thoughts
of stuff.
of like like there's this big like internal conflict that no one can see, but then like on the outside you're actually being totally normal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just so much of my life, my social life was like that. It still can be, definitely to a significant extent, but way less now. And that time was yeah, just a period of like a good like 2 years or so, I think, where I was kind of getting myself to do a lot of this kind of like exposure therapy, but also being like careful about it, like kind of like titrating it, do a little bit of it, but don't like overwhelm yourself. Like once you start getting overwhelmed, like you can retreat. And then like I did like a bit of like meditation and stuff, um, to just like have all those like anxious thoughts like settle down, because there's just also like the tendency, if you don't look at your thoughts for a second, like you're going to assume things are way worse than they are. And then when you like settle down, all this stuff you're worried about, you can at least get the chance to find out that maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. So I could also like review like kind of socially embarrassing situations and be like, okay, that actually was socially embarrassing because I was being like mega insecure, and that made me awkward. But now that I like think back to when that happened, like nobody actually cares. Like it's yeah, it was embarrassing and awkward at the time, but like probably everyone forgot. And even if they don't, like it's just not a big deal.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, a lot of people feel self-conscious, but then if they were to realize that actually everyone else is mostly just thinking about themselves and not looking to pick out flaws in others, like
Yeah.
it's actually really easy to realize that people aren't just constantly judging your every move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would how did you it sounds like you had bad like gender dysphoria around that time. How did you get to a point of mitigating it, or like have you been able to?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so I mean that social anxiety stuff I described, like that exposure therapy and kind of meditation kind of stuff, like that was actually a big part of that. So like that social anxiety, I would say, was a social anxiety like of gender dysphoria. Because for me, so much of gender dysphoria is the way that I come across as a guy, um, and like things like my voice, the sound of my voice. Like I'll like interpret like me talking like confidently. Like if I'm like talking about something that I like know a lot about, I just feel like I'm arrogant. I just feel like everybody thinks I like sound like talking like this and like I know what I'm talking about and like whatever it is I'm saying, rather than just maybe talking like I know what I'm talking about. Like I feel like I like sound like an arrogant asshole or something. And I would
Like you're worried about
again,
coming off as like mansplaining or like arrogant.
yeah, mansplaining. Yeah. Yeah, so just every bad male connotation that's out there, like I will just readily take that stuff and just apply it to myself, like with like the slightest like thing that could be interpreted that way, like I will interpret it that way. um Less so now, but I still struggle with that sort of thing. But like at the time it was like so debilitating that it was like just very hard to separate reality from my like worst case scenario thinking. That I needed to slow down enough, and I needed to like force myself to just like not keep avoiding, not keep looking away from social situations, to just like realize like being a guy isn't so bad. Maybe it's not, even if it's not what I would have chosen, even if I'll always kind of feel that way, like it's not so bad. It's just I don't have to be. I can still be okay with it. There's a lot of things that I like about being a guy, um, and I think yeah, it's just a gradual thing. Like again, I think you have to like get into reality. You have to like do things that get you into reality, so that you can at least if you have this kind of experience with gender dysphoria like I do, where it's like very much a social perception kind of thing, where like getting in reality, not avoiding, maybe look at maybe make a practice of like um, hopefully not vainly, but just like looking in the mirror and seeing if like there are ways that like I've heard a lot of people have said like with gender dysphoria they would never directly look at themselves in the mirror. Like maybe get yourself to do that, and
Yeah, like get accustomed to it.
yeah, get accustomed to it in order to just at least understand that normal things are normal. Like a lot of the things that you have a certain perception about that doesn't feel right, it's normal. At least I think that gives the opportunity to start integrating those sides of you, and like you can. I think a lot of people who pursue transition, even if it is misguided, like they're sincerely they want to be totally authentic to themselves. Um, and so like realizing that uh, you might also be avoiding other parts of yourselves if you give that much attention to transition. You might be actually depriving yourselves of being true to all sides of yourself. And so I think it's possible to love uh, the kind of masculine aspects of myself. And as much as kind of a lot of the culture in my religion. Being Catholic can definitely have that pressure to sort of, think it's necessarily best to be just fully embrace like being masculine. Um, I'm glad that I at least was open to that side of things, and I'm glad that I didn't get stuck into like a one-sided thing about it. Because I think the Catholic faith is a very expansive thing, and it has often like its deeper guiding principles have often led people to feel at odds with the Catholic community, but that seems to be like the most authentic way to be Catholic. And so, I mean, my religion had a significant part in it. I think it's guided me through kind of all of those twists and turns to here. And there was a time where I did have maybe like another one of these breakthrough moments where I was watching a lot of these movies that were like the sort of like dark fairy tale type of movie where like there's a girl who sees like this other world that other people don't see. So like I didn't watch Alice in Wonderland, but like of that sort. Like I think I watched like Coraline, Pan's Labyrinth. I love those movies. And then I watched this really bad B movie called The Magic in the Mirror that I saw when I was like a really little kid. Like it's really weird. It's not well done, but there was just this one scene where like the girl like goes into this like other world, and as soon as she goes there like for the first time, she's like surrounded by like fairies who are like flying around her, and she's laughing. And I just felt in just like gender dysphoria like smacked me again. Like I didn't get to go through childhood as a girl. Like it really like would have like had to go all the way from the beginning and be raised as a girl to really be comfortable. And I felt like I just basically applied the same thing that I had always been practicing. But this was like such a strong wave of gender dysphoria. I remember being like, I'm so sick of this. Like, why? Like, when is this going to be over? And it was one of these just like focus moments where I paused the movie and I started sobbing. But I don't know. I mean, maybe this is weird to like say a little bit like personal, but like it was one of those moments where it brought me to prayer, and I basically was saying listing all of the things about myself, like why am I like this? And I said like I don't know what to do. I was saying to God. It was one of those moments where just kind of that like radical honesty, kind of laying all of that out, like saying everything that I feel that feels just like horribly, awfully gross, cringy, whatever, for me to like feel like I want to be a woman when I'm clearly a guy with like a typical guy, like at least at the time, like seeing myself as like I should just be like a very typical guy, like because in a lot of ways I am. That I felt like basically that it came into focus everything that I know about my own religion, that none of these things, none of the way that I feel has anything to do with the way that God sees me. Like whatever happens to be true, I definitely am not seen as gross. I had to kind of like be like forced into like really focusing on like how disgusting I feel, so that I could kind of like step outside of it a bit, and kind of like it feels weird like telling these things, but basically I'm basically saying to God, this is like all these things that I feel disgusting about, and then actually having like a recollection of the fact like I already know that that doesn't affect how God sees me. And I did feel like freed kind of for that time, like just I don't know. It feels weird like talking about prayer, but I got up
Well,
and I felt very comfortable with my body, and I just felt like I wanted to dance. I turned on some music and I started dancing. Like, and I love dancing. Actually, it's a way to get in touch with my body too.
Yeah, that's a good way to like get back into your body, especially if you're having that inner battle of feeling like disgusted about being male.
Mm.
Um, yeah. After that experience, did your gender dysphoria dissipate somewhat?
Yeah, yeah. It had already been. Um, so I think I will like it took time where I could like it took time to even be able to have moments like that where I could not just be like so um, just so horrified by the feelings around gender dysphoria that I like was incapable of just stopping and like looking at what is it like, what do I actually feel, like actually looking at, I feel disgusted by myself, I just think I'm so disgusting, and just like looking at that. um, it took like a lot of time just gradually being able to do a lot of that exposure therapy. So yeah, once that was kind of like a very critical moment where I kind of like got very much like to the bottom of it. um and I actually I've never had like a wave of gender dysphoria. I mean, I don't know if like that's not a technical thing, but like I used to have like that sort of thing where it just felt like it comes out of nowhere and you have no idea, like you just start having the thought like, oh, like I'm not a woman, and you just start um I don't know if
And the
other people
feelings are
imagine
strong.
people do. Yeah, it just kind of overpowers you. So I feel like I'm not overpowered by gender dysphoria where it like blindsides me, sort of sense
Right,
thing.
like you'll have the feeling sometimes, but it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that might be like kind of the only kind of a realistic steady state is to still be feeling the feelings sometimes, but have them not like totally throw you off balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, I've definitely seen people who they detransitioned and they seem to, you know, just have this like, you know, whole like, oh, why did I want to be a woman so much, or something. And I don't know. It seems like for me, it took me a long time to it just had to be a really gradual thing. Like there was no like, that's why I'm sometimes a little skeptical of maybe sometimes when people want to be a little too facts and logic about things, like as if just like telling someone that there are only two sexes or something is gonna somehow uh,
Resolve the distress.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I think for a lot of people, like it's literally not possible to confront. Like it might be possible, but it's just like like somebody might be like driven to be like suicidal if they actually thought too much about their dysphoria. Um, you know, so I think I tend to hold out hope that like anyone who feels like deeply convinced that like they'll never be able to like get over how like suicidally horrible they feel when they're like trying to get in touch with their male body and being male. I tend to want to be like, yeah, I don't really want to like encourage people to um, assume that like it might just be like mega painful and take a lot of like really gradually, it'd just be like a really gradual process of like that kind of exposure there. But maybe there are people who it's just it is way too settled, um, and and it's just not practical to think that they'll like um, be able to get through life without transitioning. I tend to not want to like throw that out there as an option. Just if somebody comes to that themselves, I'm not gonna try to persuade them otherwise.
yeah. I think um there's a lot of people that could work through their gender feelings to the point where they feel like they don't have to transition. At least more than are currently being like allowed to do that in terms of how transition is sort of like the default, like the norm that people are sort of like corralled into.
Mhm.
But yeah, there'll always be some subset that just can't get over it, that will never become reconciled to their sex, and that transsexualism is kind of their only path forward.
Mhm. Quite possible.
And yeah, have you? It sounds like you've mitigated the worst of the gender dysphoria at this point. Are you currently, or like, have you been doing any like dating or romantic relationships in the past couple years?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Like I said, I was really trying to, uh, hoping that like being in a relationship with a woman would kind of like make me feel more connected with being a guy. That so far has not really worked. I just always feel so awkward when I like try, um, like being at all flirtatious. Like something that my therapist like pointed out when I was like talking about it is just like I like suppress my personality if like I would have like intelligent conversations with a woman I was interested in. We would have really good conversations, but I would just not like he would say like there's it sounds like there's no heat there. That was sort of the word he used, and it's just sort of like yeah, it's not, it just doesn't come to me naturally. And for a while I thought like maybe this is just going to be like a miserable process of like just having to like keep trying and um find out how I can be like how I can just in a normal way flirt like a normal like straight guy. um and yeah, I think that ultimately I'm probably going to want a relationship with a woman, but it will probably just have to be a very different kind of woman. Um, yeah, just like I don't know how many women are attracted to guys like me, but people usually say, yeah, they're out there. I'm like, yeah, they're out there.
Do you think
I'm
like
open
you'd
to
want a
that.
masculine woman?
Yeah, quite. It seems like at least like a woman with yeah, kind of a masculine sort of personality to her. Because I mean, I'm very attracted to like pretty women, but I've always found like women with a certain amount of androgyny or masculinity to them to be attractive. Um, Not like if they were like really butch. That's not exactly like attractive to me. Um, but I have yeah, I've definitely met like women who had a pretty like like who looked pretty, but they had a kind of a sort of initiative taking leadership kind of sturdy rock type of personality, that um, I think yeah eventually that would be the kind of woman I'd want to find. um, but I kind of yeah, that's all like the past and thinking about the future. But actually, right now, I have been like dating guys, and I am seeing a guy who it's not totally clear exactly what our relationship is, but um, uh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just like switching around so much. It yeah, it did like take me a little bit to like realize that yeah, to really realize that even though I'm not particularly attracted to men, I just like feel really comfortable with men. And I was sort of worried at first about that being like the way people describe like AGP. I was like, oh, is this like narcissistic? So I kind of worried about that for a little while, but I would like I started like meeting gay men. I went like I would go to gay bars. Like I have there's a gay bar that is kind of like my cheers bar. Um, and I would anytime I got into like a deep conversation or they'd be asking me like what's my story because I'm new here, and I would like tell people that I was straight. I would just be like, because that was how I felt. That was like the way I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I'm straight. I'm just like a very like, and I would like tell them like a little bit of like the description about um, kind of my like meta attraction. I would sort of describe it, And then they would always be like, oh, like, why are you overthinking it? Like, you're gay or you're bi. Like, why are you overthinking it? And I'd be like, okay. Like, I didn't care if anybody thought I was gay. In fact, I would have preferred that people just thought I was gay, but I just felt like it was dishonest. So I would tell them that I was straight. I also didn't want them thinking that I'm not attracted to them. Like, if they're gonna be like, if I'm gonna take interest in someone, like, I would want them to know that I'm not exactly sexually attracted to that person, even if I have a certain appreciation for how they look and find him handsome. And for me, it's all about affection to me. I just I like being like held and cuddling and things like that. And I'm not I don't know, I don't want to describe actually my sex life too much, but like
Right, yeah, you
sort
don't
of like
have
how
to.
that kind of works for me. But basically, it took me a while before I just like I kind of stopped worrying about that, and realized like nobody is gonna feel like I'm being dishonest, but I just feel like I had
No.
to tell them anyway.
And they don't understand meta attraction anyways.
Yeah, nobody does. They just think I'm like hugely overthinking it, and they're just like, don't
Right.
worry about it.
Yeah.
They would think that I'm straight and in denial, which I
Yeah.
was figuring stuff out, but it wasn't exactly like that. And I would even then I'd be like, I'm totally comfortable with you thinking I'm straight and in denial, because like at least like you just don't think I'm like it's better to not it feels better to not be perceived as a straight guy, which is unfortunate, but um just found. Well, anyway, the guy that I'm kind of seeing, I really like him. He's a little bit older, and is like a really respectable person. He helps me to try to find a better job. I've got a job, but it's not great. He's like tries to help me out with things. And he really does have that like sturdy rock kind of personality. He's a little taller than me. I just over time I've worried about it less and less. Like, even if I'm not physically attracted to him in anything like the way that I know that gay men usually would be attracted to each other, or the way that I'd be attracted to women. Like, I am attracted to him, though. Like, I'm attracted to his personality, and I just feel really good that he thinks I'm cute.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, if it's working out for both of you, then it's like, yeah, it's not worth worrying too much about whether it's meta attraction or conventional attraction or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's aware, like, sort of like of how I am, and so I think that's part of like what makes it sort of like we kind of understand, like, it's not totally clear like how this relationship will work out. And um I'm at yeah, but yeah, again, I don't want to go into like all the details about
Yeah, you
that.
don't have to. Um, it it seems like we've been going a while. Is there any like, to sort of like close up? Is there any other stuff you wanted to mention, or anything you wanted to say to anyone in the audience that might be in your situation?
Hmm. um Nothing really comes to mind. I feel like a lot of what I said earlier, just about at least being willing to like put in the kind of the patient, like be patient, and kind of like be willing to kind of be exposed to the things that you might be like habitually uh, driven to like avoid certain sides of yourself. Like, be patient with yourself. I think being okay with it not being all resolved right now, but kind of like at least just like no matter what, like care enough about being true to all sides of yourself. Like, watch out for the possibility that You might be pursuing sort of the transition, like all of the things that are really genuine to you about what leads you to want to transition. Watch out still for the fact like that might, before you know it, lead you to be ignoring other sides of yourself. So it can take a lot of time, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
that's what I think is what is all the advice I really have been able to think of right
Yeah,
now.
basically like sort of like exposure therapy with like whatever part of yourself that you're kind of like fearful of or like bothers you or is aversive, like still expose yourself to it and like try to like accept it with time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today, Njada.
yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Phil. Appreciate it. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.